Hello and welcome to Pro Tour-Honolulu. I'm Randy Buehler here with Brian David-Marshall. Day one is in the books. 5 rounds of Alara Block Constructed are done. 3 rounds of Alara Block Booster Draft are done. We've got 5 and 3 players advancing to day 2. They're going to play 8 more rounds. Sitting on top of the standings going into that day 2 is
1997.
1997's Brian Kibler. He was rocking the white suit.
He even had white socks.
He did. He showed up. He was sad to miss Berlin. But here he is back on tour. First time in a couple years for Brian. Ran an Esper deck in the constructed format, beaten down with Thopter Squadrons and Glaze Fiends. Drafted a sick little Esper deck on day 1. You can go look at that in the draft viewer, and ran the table 8-0.
Joining him.
Yeah, Zach Hill.
Zach Hill.
Zach Hill, who's been, well, what's the story there? He's been living in Malaysia?
He's living in Malaysia. He's got a loose fellowship.
Okay.
And he's, kind of was talking about like he was going to be giving up Magic. He's like, oh, I got to get on my life.
Fellowship thing.
But apparently there's a great store, a great community there. He's playing more Magic than
I think he's
at
in Memphis.
Yeah, I think so. And he's playing better Magic probably than he's played at any point on the Pro Tour before. I mean,
Sure.
This has got to be his best performance, and he's 8-0 as well.
There you go, 2 undefeateds. A lot of people were really looking to this format to figure out what's going on with Alara Block Constructed. I mean, there was a big tournament on Magic Online last weekend. It was totally dominated by Cascade Control. Jund was basically what people talked about. I mean, you could play it 3-color, you could play it 4, but it was all Bloodbraid Elves, Bituminous Blasts, Putrid Leech, Maelstrom Pulse. That was the deck that everybody was playing. So with that deck having a target on its forehead coming into this event, you know what? There's more diversity than people were expecting. This format has actually got a collection of different decks, a collection of different strategies.
I mean, well, you just have to look to the top of the standings to see. I don't know that anyone was expecting Glaze Fiend to be on top of the standings at the end of day 1.
It's true.
And in constructed or limited, but especially constructed.
Fair. And several other flavors of aggressive decks made it to the undefeated Mark II. So 5-0 decks, there were 12 of them. They included Kibler with the what are they calling it?
Beach House Beatdown?
Beach House Beatdown, or Stoneblade. Esper Stoneblade is the other name I heard. It's not bad. There's also a green-white aggressive deck floating around that the Japanese chose to run. Essentially, the idea is I'm 2-color, I've got great mana, I've got some really powerful creatures in my deck that I can attack you with, and if you hiccup on your mana development, I'm going to punish you, because I'm going to come out, I'm going to hit you hard, I'm going to hit you fast. That deck, 1 undefeated player, Osamu Fujita, and 64% winning percentage on the day.
Yeah, it was the breakout deck of the tournament.
I think so. I really think so.
Tsuyoshi Fujita wrote an article that is apparently seminal to the Japanese players about playing in multicolor formats. And he said, if everyone's playing 3-color decks or more, you want to play a 2-color deck. If everyone's playing 2-color decks, you want to play a 1-color deck. He said, you're going to win 20% of the time just on having better mana than your opponents.
Yeah. There you go. That's how they drew it up, and that deck's been doing really well. So I think we could easily see some of those decks advancing through to Sunday. You do still have a lot of Jund, though, at the top. I mean, there's a lot of control. There's 5 what I would call Jund control. Cascade, maybe it's 3-color, maybe it's 4-color. So, card advantage via Cascade and a bunch of removal. Sort
of a mid-range rock kind of approach to the format.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So Cruel Ultimatum, Wall of Denial, Esper Charm, Courier's Capsule, usually Traumatic Visions to stitch the mana together. I mean, that deck's doing well, too. One of the aggro decks I find interesting at the top of the Swiss is the Sidraxis aggro deck that world champion Makihito Mahara is running. Do you know the story behind that deck?
Sure, that's Brad Nelson. Brad Nelson is FF Freak. He was, as soon as Alara Reborn came online and was able to be used in constructed premier events, he won the first event that week. He won the last event that week. He started off with a white weenie deck, and he ended on the Sidraxis aggro deck.
Right, so it's like Mad Rush Cyclops, it's Sidraxis Spectre. I mean, it's sort of really aggressive and hasty, but sort of bigger creatures than the sort of the Hackblade deck that everybody else has been running. So Mahara basically copied the deck list off the guy that sort of everybody on Magic Online knows is one of the best for Freak. It's the guy you live in fear of. It's the guy's deck list you want to copy. It's the guy who, until this weekend, had never played a match on the Pro Tour.
Right. He had shown up at the Nationals and 7-0'd the limited portion a couple of years ago. But this was his first Nationals. He had to drive, I think, 8 hours to go to a PTQ.
He's just never PTQ'd.
He went to 1 PTQ for this season.
Nice.
Yep. Qualified. And his debut on the Pro Tour is against Luis Scott Vargas.
Round 1 feature match.
Essentially, Brad Nelson from 3 years ago.
That's true. Yeah, 3 years ago, LSV was the guy tearing up Magic Online, but nobody knew him in the real world.
So, and then he had to end his day in fairly difficult fashion, too. He played against Shuhei Nakamura in the feature match area for the last round of day one.
A couple guys said he plays on Magic Online all the time, but, I mean, Brad was saying the real world's a little bit different.
Yeah, he said he got to the Pro Tour, and, you know, again, he plays LSV, he plays Shuhei, he plays everyone. And, you know, again, he's kind of the big man on campus when you go to the Magic Online University.
Right.
But when you get here, you know, suddenly there's lights, there's action. I mean, there's people writing down your picks and writing down what you're doing, and you know, there's just people making noise, and there's a crowd. And he said it was kind of like a major league fastball, trying to catch up to it.
A little bit faster
when he got here. Yeah, just a little bit faster. But I mean, he acquitted himself admirably. I mean,
6-2?
6-2 in your debut.
Yeah, his
beating
debut is not over
Shuhei
yet.
into day two is pretty impressive.
There you go. So he'll still be playing tomorrow. What other names you see in the standings that look interesting?
I'm a big Sebastian Thaler fan.
Sure. Yeah, he is his normal spot, 4th place, right in top 8 contention. Every Pro Tour, he seems to be right there, right in the thick of it.
Yeah, I really like watching him play. He just always seems to make the right decisions. And again, is just always right in the mix of it. He's lost to Kibler in the last round in a feature match to go undefeated on day one. He's in great shape.
Yeah, he lost that in 3, where he got game 2. He kept 1 land, 6 2 drops.
He just didn't get there.
No, didn't get there.
Yeah. Again, my big 3.
Right.
They all pushed through. Luis Scott Vargas is at X and 2.
Yep.
You know, always a person you have to watch on day 2.
Absolutely.
Gabe Nassif bubble matched in.
Yep, 4-3, still playing.
And
Tomohiro
5-3. Sato also
5-3.
5-3.
Still playing.
Those guys are probably pretty scary with the bricks against their back.
You got 8 rounds, a lot of Magic left to be played too. So there starts out tomorrow morning. They're going to draft again. Now, what's the buzz about this draft format? Full Alara block. What has Reborn done to the format? What's going on now?
The border posts have completely changed everything, in my opinion.
Okay.
Two sets of cards have changed the format. The border posts have suddenly made all these cards in Conflux much better. Sidraxis Alchemist, Parasitic Strix, Dark Temper.
Sure.
The Spider, Ember Weaver.
Yep.
All those cards suddenly have the benefit of being able to play them on turn 3, with your land drop it being appropriately colored permanent.
Yeah, they're turned on.
And those you're seeing people just completely changing the way they drafting much more aggressively. Also fitting into that.
Yeah, the blades, I think, are the most impactful cards. There's just all these 3/2s for 2 running around. 3/2 for 2 is incredibly aggressive. And Reborn is just full of really powerful cards and really cheap, aggressive cards. So I'm not sure there has ever been a third set that's affected Booster Draft this much.
Sure.
I mean, Reborn is so powerful, and it makes the format so fast that, like, you can't take Armillary Sphere anymore. You don't have time. Like, Cavern Thoktar, I think, is a bad card now. Godsire or Magma Spray? Magma Spray. I don't even think it's close.
Ultimatum or Magma Spray?
Yeah, Magma Spray. Way better. So the format seems really aggressive now. You really want, if you can get 2 colors, you want to try to get 2 colors. 2 and a splash is probably more typical, but I think you're supposed to take shards and figure out, okay, which 2-color deck is going to get passed to me from my right? What am I going to get the hookup on in Reborn? If you can read that shards pack and figure out what kind of hookup you're going to get in Reborn, you get into the right 2-color, maybe 2.5-color aggro deck. I think that's the way you win Booster Draft in this format.
If you watch if you look at the draft viewer, you can watch Kibler, who swept his table, drafting an aggressive Esper deck.
Yep.
And you can also watch Sebastian Thaler, who I just thought had a very interesting approach to the format.
Yeah, what was his first pick again?
His first pick, he had an option of Vein Drinker,
right,
which is traditionally a first pick in this format.
Absolutely.
He had an option of Rox Warmonk, also traditionally a first pick, sends a strong signal.
Yep.
He took Cathari Screecher.
2/2 flyer for 3.
He just wanted to be blue-white aggro.
Yeah.
He knew he wanted to be banned. He knew he wanted to be a little bit of Esper.
It's not even banned. He was literally just blue-white.
Right. But he's sort of willing to touch in one or the other. But he knows he wants to be base blue-white.
Yeah.
Lots of planes,
really good.
lots of islands.
So many flyers. So many flyers in the blue-white deck. Yeah,
it's a very interesting draft to watch. You should definitely check out the draft viewer. We also did a draft tech with Sebastian, where he talked a little bit about his philosophy of aggressive drafts. But you know, the days of taking all the obelisks and all the panoramas and the shard convergence and stringing a bunch of powerful cards together. You don't have time for that anymore.
I'm with you. Although, of course, now that everybody wants to go 2-color aggro, they start to dilute that card pool. Maybe it opens up. You can go 5-color because you're the only one.
There are certainly advocates for the 5-color strategy still.
Right. I mean, Booster Draft's got that self-correcting thing going on. But certainly, this format seems more aggressive than most, and Reborn seems to have fundamentally changed the way the whole draft plays out. So, Interesting stuff here in Honolulu. Tomorrow, we're going to have another draft. We're going to have 5 more rounds of block constructed, and 24 hours from now, we'll know who our top 8 is. We'll know who's going to play for the $40,000 and that Pro Tour Championship title. Stay tuned. Keep your browser on magicthegathering.com. Brian and I will be there bringing you coverage. See you tomorrow.